welcome back to my YouTube channel. And as you can hear, it's raining, but I'm using for the first time my outdoor filming space to bring you this video. Well, my next watercolour demonstration will be on my YouTube channel at 3 PM UK time this coming Friday, and I'll be demonstrating from start to finish this complete painting. It's the last painting on my trip to Molehill Hut in Herefordshire, and you can actually see the hut itself, and this is the view we had from the shepherd's hut. And let me hone in a little closer, and I'll explain a little bit about the process, just as a little taster to the coming demonstration. Well, as you can see, I've pulled in considerably closer, but basically this was exactly what I could see from the hut that we stayed in, and it's just all about trees and distant fields really, and of course this lovely shadow that takes a bit of painting in, a little bit of courage, but if you take that extra courage and that extra step, you'll see how much it actually lights up the not only the foreground but also in this case the distance. So we've got that lovely transition of tone from a little bit of a darker shadow here in the foreground. Then we've got the very sunlit area that's nice and yellow. I always put lots of yellows in the grasses to give that sunlight effect. And then of course you've got this shadow area before we get the less intense green but still very sunlit in the distance, before we get to the rather hazy distant fields. Basically I damped the paper right the way down to the edge of the field in the distance or middle distance, and then I dropped in the cobalt blue, a little raw sienna for the tips of the clouds. That always helps to highlight the lightness on the clouds. You know, white paper is good, but if you add a little raw sienna to the clouds, then you do get that lovely sort of sunlight effect. Then obviously you've just got to watch that you don't mix it on the paper, otherwise it turns green, but there you go. That's the process that you'll see when I demonstrate this coming Friday. Before the sky was completely dry, I dropped in light, well, it's actually cobalt blue and light red, I believe, and as you can see I've got a blurred finish to the tops of the hills. Now I wanted that because of the clarity of the trees in the foreground. Had we have had too much clarity in the distance, we wouldn't have felt the distance. I wanted to create that hazy summer day that it actually was, and the only way to do that is to use soft edges, well, in my way of painting anyway. Then as I come forward, a little bit of raw sienna for just a hint at far distant fields, so that little tip of raw sienna. Then I started with just the wash of greens. That's all I did, starting off with raw sienna, cobalt blue, and then I introduced cadmium yellow, may have even been a bit of cadmium lemon as I came forward. Then I put Windsor blue, Prussian blue you could use, into the greens for the foreground, slightly more intense greens, and then dry brush work to give texture, and this way you get a lovely feeling of depth. Once that was all dry, I then go back and put in some distant greens, albeit not too intense. Notice how the greens on the trees are very much intensified, as opposed to the greens in the middle distance. So that's what you do really when you paint fields like this. You put on a wash of colour Don't worry about the trees and hedging, because 9 times out of 10 the hedges and the trees are darker than the fields. So what you do, you paint all the varying colours of the fields, then you allow that to dry, and then you paint on top the darker trees, hedging. It's as simple as that, really. There is a little bit of hedging there that I put in, but anyway, you'll see on the painting process exactly how that pans out. Then it's just a matter of painting the shepherd's hut. I put in the railings there that actually separates this more or less meadow from a little area, well, quite a large area actually, but I just wanted the shepherd's hut to come in on the right hand side purely to denote exactly where we were. Then the trees, well, the trees are painted, 2 trees, slightly different varieties of trees there, but this one is the key to it, the real dark tree on the left that casts that shadow. And of course, so that tree casts a shadow there. Then we have, because of the sun being slightly behind the trees, the shadow, don't bring those shadows forward, otherwise it looks as if the ground falls away. They still lay across and they're foreshortened, quite narrow. Had you have been up in a helicopter or whatever looking down, you would see the full size of the shadow, but when you look across the landscape, then you only see a foreshortened version. So then you came into the hedging, and then that tree also creates another shadow, albeit foreshortened, but I left this shadow goes behind the hedging, because the hedging comes along against the light, but then it comes into light as it heads towards the molehill hut. So that's the reason for the change of shadow there. It wouldn't have worked if that shadow were to go right the way across the front. That's just that little bit of light there that creates the illusion of you know, the feeling you want to walk into the picture and walk into the distance. So then the trees are just used a fairly dry brush application. Once the leafing's put in, 3 tones, lights, mediums, darks, then goes in the trunk and any branch work. This one, no branch work, very dark colour, and just scratched across the surface really. And then finally, the finishing touches to the shepherd's hut, a little bit of impression of the cladding, the windows, the overhang shadow from the corrugated, half round corrugated roof, and then obviously shadows on the posts. Now they are brand new, so they're all sharp and neat, but notice how I've painted them, even although they are new, I've given them a looser feel. In the foreground I've put in some reds, light red, burnt sienna, that's an orangey brown. They're all good to show texture in the foreground, but as I went away I used less texture. And so that's basically it really. And it will be the full down, obviously birds just circling around the tops of that tree, and a couple there just to help fill the space in the sky. But the complete real-time demonstration will be on my YouTube channel this coming Friday, 6 PM UK time. Well, there you have it. A very quick explanation of how this was painted. Lovely subject, quite simple. For those of you that are fairly new to watercolour painting, may wish to try this one because it's not a difficult one to get to come off. So the full real-time demonstration will be on my YouTube channel this coming Friday, 6 PM UK time. And if you can't make it then, obviously once it's uploaded you can view any time after that. I hope you enjoy watching, and we'll see you on Friday.